The sound of Black Hawks overhead wasn't part of the neighborhood's usual ambience. 2 Humvees blocked the entrance to my cul-de-sac. Armed personnel stood guard by my mailbox. And taped to a stop sign was a laminated notice that read, "Warning, you are entering a temporary federal operations zone, HOA access revoked under 18 U.S. Code Section 1382. Across the street, Karen Larchmont, president of the Chestnut Hill HOA, was hyperventilating into a leopard print neck fan, screaming with pure rage in her voice, "They took my road. That's our road. I bought concrete. No, Karen. You took my private access road. And now, it belongs to the United States Department of Defense." My name is Daniel Fry, 41, ex-civil engineer turned reclusive hobby farmer. I bought 5 acres just outside of Chestnut Hill Estates in Tennessee. My plot came with a private access road, built and maintained by me, according to my deed, my surveyor, and common decency. Enter Karen Larchmont, a woman whose HOA presidency was the result of a 2-vote landslide and an unmatched ability to weaponize Canva for passive-aggressive signage. Karen believed every inch of asphalt visible to her HOA should fall under her control, even if it wasn't hers. Especially if it wasn't. One morning, I found the sign. "Welcome to Chestnut Hill Parkway, HOA monitored speed limit 12.5 miles per hour, residents only." Installed on my road. They'd even renamed it on Google Maps. I removed the signs. The next day, they doubled them. She had a whole sign crew with matching vests and everything. Then came the citations. Unauthorized vehicle passage for my tractor. Failure to landscape shoulders for my gravel road. Karen, it's a gravel road. Excessive rural vibes. I still don't know what that means. She held a neighborhood vote, without me obviously, and declared my road annexed into the Chestnut Hill Roadscape Plan. She mailed me an invoice for shared maintenance. The harassment escalated quickly. Karen installed security cameras pointed at my road, documenting every vehicle that passed. She created a spreadsheet with license plates, times, and her personal assessment of whether each vehicle met community standards. My plumber's van was rated as unacceptably commercial. My mother's sedan was flagged as suspiciously modest for the neighborhood. She started holding HOA meetings specifically about my road compliance. The meetings would last 3 hours, with PowerPoint presentations featuring photos of my property from angles that suggested she'd been trespassing at dawn to get them. She'd circle things in red like grass that was 1 inch too tall or my mailbox that was apparently the wrong shade of black. The final straw came when she had contractors pour a speed bump on my access road without asking. On my land. My private property that I'd owned for 8 years. But that wasn't enough for Karen. She installed a gate at what she claimed was the official entrance to the HOA, which happened to be right where my road connected to the main street. The gate required a code that she changed daily and only gave to approved residents. The audacity was breathtaking, but Karen wasn't done yet. She started telling delivery drivers they needed HOA passes to use my road. My Amazon packages started getting returned as undeliverable. The FedEx driver told me Karen had threatened to have his truck towed if he used my road again. She'd actually printed laminated cards that said delivery authorization denied by order of the Chestnut Hill HOA board. I contacted a lawyer. He laughed so hard he had to put me on hold to compose himself. Then I contacted my cousin Marcus. He didn't laugh. Because he's a lieutenant colonel in the U.S. Army Reserve. Turns out, Marcus had been looking for temporary training grounds for a regional logistics drill. Nothing major, just convoy movement, base setup, light coordination. All they needed was rural land, road access, and no nosy civilians. Guess who had 5 acres and a fresh HOA headache? Marcus explained that under certain federal regulations, the military could temporarily utilize private land for training exercises with the owner's permission. The best part was that once designated as a training area, all local ordinances and HOA rules became null and void. Federal jurisdiction trumped everything. I signed the paperwork that afternoon. Marcus assured me it would be a standard 2-week exercise, completely legal, and most importantly, completely outside Karen's control. The Army would even resurface my road when they were done as compensation for the inconvenience. 2 weeks later, the transformation began at 0600 hours. Camouflage netting went up first. Then came the temporary comm towers. Portable floodlights lined the entire length of my access road. The speed bump that Karen had illegally installed was bulldozed within 4 minutes by an engineering unit. I watched from my porch with a cup of coffee, trying not to smile too widely. The HOA tried to protest immediately. Karen marched down with her entire board, all 5 of them, demanding to speak to whoever was in charge. They were handed a federal notice stating the road was now part of a restricted operations corridor. The notice was 30 pages long, filled with legal terminology that basically said stay out or face federal charges. Karen tried to enter the site anyway, claiming she needed to inspect HOA property. She was gently but firmly escorted out by 2 MPs who towered over her 5'4" frame. She shouted with indignation dripping from every word, "I am the sovereign president of this development. These are our standards. Our community values." One soldier replied in a monotone voice, "Ma'am, this isn't a bake sale. It's a base. Please step back behind the yellow line." The yellow line was spray-painted across what used to be the entrance to my road. Karen's face turned 3 shades of purple as she realized her kingdom had shrunk by one very important access point. She sent a cease and desist letter that afternoon, drafted by her nephew who was a first-year law student. The army sent it back, shredded and zip-tied to a traffic cone with a note that simply said no. Karen didn't give up easily. She called the local news station, claiming the military was invading a residential neighborhood. The reporter who showed up took one look at the federal paperwork, interviewed Marcus, who explained it was a routine training exercise on private property with full owner consent, and ended up doing a puff piece about supporting our troops. Karen's interview never aired, though someone did upload a clip of her screaming about constitutional violations while a soldier calmly ate an MRE in the background. It went viral on TikTok with the caption, "When Karen meets the real government." She then tried calling the mayor, the governor, even her congressman. Each office politely informed her that federal military exercises superseded local HOA regulations. Her congressman's aide actually laughed when she claimed the HOA presidency gave her sovereign authority over all visible roads. The aide told her, "Ma'am, you're not a sovereign nation. You're barely a functional democracy based on your 2-vote election margin." For the next week, Chestnut Hill residents watched in horror as Karen's empire crumbled piece by piece. The satellite imagery on Google Maps now labeled the road as temporary DOD access, no civilian entry. The HOA's carefully maintained entrance sign was blocked by a checkpoint. The neighborhood's pristine aesthetic was shattered by military vehicles rumbling past at all hours. Karen tried to rally support by holding a protest march. She created flyers, sent emails, even hired a local high school marching band. Only 3 people showed up, and one of them was just delivering DoorDash to the wrong address. The marching band took one look at the armed guards and decided they had somewhere else to be. The county got involved when they received complaints about unauthorized construction. Turns out, Karen never got permits for the speed bump she installed on my property. Or for the signs. Or for the decorative boulder she'd placed at what she thought was the road's entrance but was actually 2 feet inside my property line. The fines started rolling in. Unauthorized construction on private property, $5,000. Encroachment without easement, $3,000. Falsifying official documents because she'd been telling people she owned the road on HOA letterhead, $8,000. Impersonating a government official when she tried to issue citations using fake badge numbers, $15,000 pending criminal investigation. During the emergency HOA meeting, residents demanded answers. How could Karen spend HOA funds on illegal construction? Why did she lie about owning the road? Where did $30,000 in dues go if not to actual community improvements? The forensic accountant they hired found she'd been using HOA funds for her personal sign-making business, charging the association triple for every banner and notice. The revelations kept coming. She'd been billing the HOA for consulting fees paid to a company called KL Management Solutions, which turned out to be just Karen with a business license. She'd charged them $1,500 to research road acquisition strategies, $3,000 for boundary expansion planning, and somehow $800 for what she called aesthetic harassment mitigation services. One resident stood up and said with barely contained fury, "You spent $12,000 of our money trying to steal this man's road? That's our kids' playground fund. That's our pool maintenance. Karen's response was to pull out a binder labeled Expansion Opportunities and claim she was building an empire of excellence. The room erupted. Someone threw a dinner roll from the refreshment table. The vote to remove her was unanimous. Even her own vice president voted against her. As they counted the votes out loud, each yes felt like a hammer blow. Karen's expression shifted from defiant to shocked to completely devastated. When the final tally was announced, 47-0, she stood up shakily and said in a broken whisper, "But I made this neighborhood beautiful. I gave you standards. I gave you property values." Someone from the back shouted, "You gave us a federal investigation." The army left after exactly 2 weeks, but not before my cousin used the whole incident in a training slideshow titled "Why You Always Get a Land Use Agreement." They resurfaced my road as promised, better than it had ever been. Karen now works part-time at a craft store 30 miles away and refuses to drive anywhere near my property. She mutters something about shadow governments and deep asphalt whenever someone mentions the incident. My road remains under private ownership, and for good measure, I had it officially named on the county registry. Karen's Folly. It's on Google Maps. Look it up. The federal investigation concluded with Karen receiving 2 years probation and $40,000 in combined fines and restitution. When the judge read the sentence, she fainted right there in the courtroom, her leopard print neck fan clattering across the floor.